Okay, so that's day 2 done. We are now on to day 3. If you may remember from yesterday's video, I said I was going out last night on date night, and I did, and it all went a little bit pear-shaped because we didn't go to the Greek place. We went to this amazing wine bar called Ranouf's in Southbourne, which is around the corner from where I am, and it was basically wine and cheese and some meats, but actually, as I was talking about yesterday, having a lot of the same thing. We had loads of cheese and I was stuffed on the chease. A little bit of meat, and actually I didn't go that overboard really when I think back on it. If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, you'll see a photo next to this of actually what this spread was, and that was for both me and my wife to share. Now I did have quite a bit, well I say quite a bit of wine, probably about half a bottle of wine. I had a few beers, and actually that's where most of the empty calories came from because, oh look at my hair sticking up there, because most beer and alcohol is pretty bad for that kind of thing, and actually it's a weak spot. I mean, I love a beer, especially when the weather's glorious like it is at the moment here, and I love a glass of wine, and unfortunately it does just pile on those extra bits and bobs that make succeeding at losing weight more challenging and makes this challenge harder. But it was one day and everyone has an off day, and that's life. Life has these blips, and as I mentioned in my first video, there are going to be a few blips that I'm aware of on the way, but that is part of doing this in the real world and proving that this method of losing weight and then keeping it off and then actually getting yourself in good shape and feeling healthy is effective in the real world and can work for you guys as well. Now this brings me to an interesting point about off days, and this is something that has plagued me in the past, is actually that kind of little voice in your head that when you have one day that you actually mess up on, and mess up is the word that you use or I use in my own head because you feel kind of guilty and bad about it, you sometimes think, well actually if I ballsed up today, well sod it, I'm not going to do the rest of the week because what's the point, you know, I've messed up today. And it might be you started your program on Monday and on Tuesday you've done something, you've fallen off the wagon. You think, well, you know, I've fallen off the wagon, well, let's not bother with the rest of the week. And sometimes it might extend to actually, let's not bother even with the rest of the program. And it's one of those things that has plagued me in the past. And the reason behind it is something called cognitive dissonance. And I found out about this when I was doing research into why this was happening to me all the time. And literally every single time when I fell off the wagon, I would not be able to get back onto eating healthy again. And again, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a medical professional, but my understanding of cognitive dissonance is when your brain and your beliefs don't match, and your actions and your beliefs don't match. Obviously your brain is your beliefs and your actions don't match together. You get something called cognitive dissonance, which is where your brain's like going, oh, and feeling like really frustrated, and it's unpleasant. So you shift your behaviors to fit your beliefs, or your beliefs to fit your behaviors, one way or the other. So for example, if I'm a smoker, and I used to be, I'm not for about well over a decade now, but if you're a smoker and you're smoking and you want to give up smoking, your body's like going, no, I want to carry on smoking, and you start making excuses as to why you may not. So for example, you might say, well, I've heard if you stop smoking, you start putting on weight, and I don't want to put on weight, so therefore smoking is okay to continue doing, despite the fact it's going to kill you. So that's an example of cognitive dissonance at play. Similar with the eating, and if you put this into the eating kind of arena, what happened yesterday, I might go, well, you know, what I've done is I've gone and eaten more than I should, I've drunk stuff, so you know, actually that's kind of okay. And if I'm going to do that, well, I might as well carry on for the rest of the week doing that because it's okay, because my behaviors have now done that, and your brain is trying to struggle with that. Similarly, you may be in another example, you may be watching a big match, like the football, maybe you're watching the Europa League the other night, and you might have been watching that again, well, it's the big game, I'm watching it, yeah, it's really, really cool, so I'm going to have a few beers, I'm going to eat what I want because it's the big match, and that's okay, and that's what I've always done. And your behaviors don't match with the pattern of what you would normally do. So if you're trying on a diet and you can't drink and you can't eat, then your brain's like, no, this is what I've always done, I've got all these habits, this thing I'm used to doing, and you can't do it. So it causes discomfort, so you make excuses and you eat. Hopefully I've explained that relatively well. The way you get over cognitive dissonance is you kind and look at your beliefs, and you look at where this is coming from, and you look and try and answer yourself, ask questions honestly. So for example, my overindulgence last night, this morning I asked myself, well, look Rob, really, does one night, is it going to really cause you that much damage? I sat down and I thought about what I'd eaten, and probably, yeah, I mean, I may have nailed 3,500 calories yesterday, and it does come down to calories ultimately, but even that, you know, that's not going to be that much. It's not enough if you think, you know, as an average man, I need 2,400 calories just to maintain my weight. So that's a third of a pound I could have put on if I ate that much. And if I hadn't done walking to and from the restaurant, I hadn't done anything during the day that day. So that's, you know, and I think to myself, well, actually, Robert, is that really a reason to stop this? And actually, if you'll carry on with the program and you're doing what you're doing every day, well, by the end of the day, that will have gone. That you won't even have to worry about those extra bits that you ate and drank, because it will have been cleared out of the bank account, so to speak. So really, is that a good way of thinking? And so by interrogating that belief, I've been able to work out that actually it's bollocks. And I don't need to actually perpetuate that and fall off the wagon completely. And so I can accept that. Now, what it does do, though, is it does bring in another little belief, which we'll talk about in another video, which is a thought that, well, actually, if you could overindulge that day, why not do it a couple of days a week? Why not have a bit more fun then while you're doing this program? Because you can get rid of it by just, if you overeat one day, well, then you can do with the program the next day and it counters it. And it's a valid argument, especially when you're looking at maintenance and ongoing, or if you're not looking to get yourself in shape as quickly as I am. But it's also a bit dangerous. So we'll cover that another day when we talk about it, and actually what you do to counter a positive, what is actually a kind of almost a positive association, but it's still cognitive dissonance at play, and it's a right little bugger getting in there trying to cause trouble. Anyway, that's me for day 3. I will see you tomorrow for day 4's video, and give you an update, and we'll talk about some other stuff and give you some other tips on how to combat any issues that you may have when and if you actually start to follow this program. So I will speak to you soon. Bye now.